Thank you all for being here today. Excellencies, distinguished guests, colleagues, I would like to begin this event by honoring the millions of Syrians who, for over a decade, have sacrificed their lives, their safety, their well-being in the pursuit of dignity, freedom, and a democratic society. Their struggle have been one of immense courage, resilience, and unwavering determination in the face of a brutal repression. Today, we must not only recognize these sacrifices, but also ensure that these voices are heard, that their efforts are not in vain, and that justice prevails. The fall of Assad presents the international community with a critical opportunity, one that we cannot afford to miss. For too long, Syrians have endured grave human rights violations, mass displacement, and enforced disappearances, all while continuing to demand justice and accountability. Now, as Syria stands at a turning point, it is our responsibility to stand with its people and support them in shaping a future grounded in the rule of law, human rights, and inclusive governance. It is imperative that we do all we can to protect the Syrians throughout this transitional process. We must provide them with the necessary tools to ensure that their calls for justice and equality are met with meaningful action. We cannot allow history to repeat itself. We cannot allow national human rights defenders, women's rights activists, members of minorities, civil society actors, and families of the disappeared to once again be silenced through repression and violence. The voices of those who have fought tirelessly for change must be at the center of Syria's future. The international mechanisms established in response to Syria's crisis, the Commission of Inquiry, the International Impartial and Independent Mechanism, and the Mechanism for the Disappeared, all play an essential role in this process. They are not merely technical institutions. They are instruments of justice, accountability, and most importantly, truth-seeking. Their work will be critical in ensuring that impunity does not take root in post-Assad Syria and that those responsible for atrocities are held accountable. Today's discussion is focused on the future, on how these instruments can support the Syrian people in the transitional justice process and help lay ground for a Syria that upholds human rights and dignity for all its people. To guide this conversation, we are honored to be joined by brave voices from Syria. Bushra, who will be representing the Civil Peace Group, a group of activists from Homs, as well as the remarkable Fadwa Mahmoud, who doesn't need an introduction. As the mother and wife of the disappeared and a tireless advocate for justice, her work embodies the relentless struggle that so many Syrians continue to search for their loved ones. We are also honored to have the heads of the mechanisms I mentioned to guide this discussion as well. Before I begin, I would like to extend my sincere gratitude to Germany and to Luxembourg for their support in making this event possible. And with that, it is my honor to give the floor to Madam Ambassador Nicola for her keynote speech.
Thank you very much. And I feel extremely honored to be part of this panel and that we can make it possible. Excellencies, distinguished guests, colleagues, but in particular, as you mentioned already, to Bushra and also to Fadwa to be here on this panel and to listen to your expertise in a few moments, that you were able to join us here in Geneva. We are in the fourth week of the Human Rights Council, and the remarks of the Syrian foreign minister to this council give us hope that after decades of the Assad regime, there is a chance for a stable, peaceful, and democratic Syria. So let's seize it. At the same time, with the shocking eruption of violence in the coastal areas just 2 weeks ago, we see how still fragile the situation is. The transitional government now needs to live up to its promise of ensuring security and the rule of law for all. As the contours of the past horrors and future challenges become clearer by the day, we wanted to bring this group here together to hear about your experiences on the transitional justice process and your ideas, how to best cooperate and also to coordinate in the future. That is the point we constantly hear from the Syrian transitional government, from civil society, but also from the mechanisms itself. Cooperation is key. With the IIIM, the IIIM, the COA, the IIMP, and also OHCHR, starting one country office in Syria, we not only have endless acronyms we all are getting more familiar with now, but seriously also very distinct mandates, each one of them. Understanding what you can do with these mandates, where work can be shared, but also where the limits lie, is paramount for success and to avoid also frustrations and misunderstandings amongst you. Germany stands ready to support Syria on the path to confront the past and shape a better future. And we obviously support you in your panel, here on the panel, in the triple, in all the different mechanisms in your very important work. One concluding thought, as the zeitgeist seems to dictate a certain pessimism about the idea of international accountability mechanisms, I dare to point to Syria as a case in point that demonstrates international cooperation can indeed offer a pathway to justice and accountability. With this, I hand over to Maisa from the Cairo Institute again, and thank you very much for organizing this, co-organizing this event here today. Thank you very much.
Thank you so much, Ambassador. We will start with our first speaker, Madame Fadwa. Please note that English is available on channel 2 and Arabic on channel 3. And to you, تفضلي.
Thank you so much for all the organizers or the institutions giving me the chance to be with you as a mother, a wife, on the name of the prisoners and disappeared person. Before starting, I would like to make a moment of silence for all the dead people. Then please stand up for silence for all the people who lost their lives. Thank you. My name is Fadwa Mahmoud. I am from the coast of Syria. From the 1970s, I was in a position to Assad regime when he took the power in Syria. Even if, as I told you, I am from the coast and the regime, the Alawi regime, this regime does it representing and the Syrians, and I was from the 70s, from the opposition. I paid the price, my life a lot. I was in prison for 2 years. My son was 9 years old, and my son, who was 9 years old, he told me, how you will leave us during 2 years with his brother who was about 5 years old. I am told them I am a member of the opposition in order to stop all forms of the repressions, in order to defend dignity. Unfortunately, my son, since 2012, was arrested and disappeared with my husband, Dr. Abdel Khairi. He was arrested for more than 14 years, and now he disappeared until now. From a long time, we all the time say that we want the Syria for all the Syrians with justice, because Syrians need, since 2012, we defended the case of the disappeared during the Hafid and Bashar has. We could not at that time speak because all the ways were blocked. We contacted all the international communities in order to help us. We are members of the imprisoned. From 2015, unfortunately, the case of the disappeared was a hidden case, but we started as members to speak out about the cases of the prisoners and the disappeared. We all the time defended the case, and now it is the first case, and now all are speaking about, and a result of our struggle with the members of the disappeared and also the civil society, we struggled in order to create the institution to reveal the destiny, to deal with the issue, the whereabouts of the prisoners and the disappeared person. We made a lot of efforts, we struggled in order to create this institution. It is constituted, and with the constitution of this institution, we had to play an important role. My role was fundamental in this institution. And now I will speak about another thing. At the collapse of the Assad regime, we all were happy. It was my dream all my life. My dream was the collapse, and I was all when the prisons were opened. We hoped to see the members of them, but unfortunately we have only limited number of prisoners that were released. And we have also the problem if they are opposition political prisoners or criminals. I will not criticize anyone. We had a chaotic situation at that time. All the documents, the reports were thrown out because these documents for us were and are the evidence for us, the important, because these documents can help us to find the whereabouts of the members, because I cannot give you any figure of the disappeared person. I cannot say that all are killed, or I want to reach the truth. That's why we are calling for the truth. Now, with the transitional government, we called them, we asked them, the first thing to do is to keep and protect all the evidences. This is what we tell them in order to make an end to the chaotic situation, because this will not help in the future the transitional justice. But we received no answers. I am telling you the truth. There was no feedback because I suffered a lot when I am visiting the tombs, finding the rest of the corpse. as a mother and for all the mothers in Syria looking for the disappeared person, because it's a great suffering for us. We call them to protect the camps, but no, we received no feedback. We called as members of the prisoners and of the disappeared to meet with the new government in order to discuss with them our claims. Unfortunately, after more than and with the mediation of international organization, they accepted to meet us as families. For me, I have now a feeling I suffered a lot more than was expected, but because I lived a long struggle. For me, the collapse of the regime will live in security, injustice. Unfortunately, we're still waiting and to conclude what happened in the coast of Syria, the acts of violence, because as I told you, I am born in this region. All my families, I don't know, all the inhabitants of this region are members of the regime. No, what we want an impunity, we want accountability and the prosecution of all the members in order to stop all kinds of violence. We want real justice, transitional justice. This justice must be implemented, but unfortunately, we are still waiting. We call for transitional justice, but where is the? It must be implemented all the time. We hear everywhere from the social media that they will create transitional justice in order to reveal the commission of inquiry on Syria. In Syria, we receive information only from the social media because we are normally, because they are the members of the families of the prisoners and the disappeared person. We must be the first to be contacted and to be part of this commission. Because, as I told you, that's why I am calling the regime. We want a national commission. We want a national commission of inquiry to be a national commission. It must be independent, with including the members of the families, and we must be working with them. Sorry for speaking because I'm still suffering from this situation. Thank you so much.
Thank you so much, Fadwa, for this powerful testimony. I give the floor to Mr. Robert Petit, the head of the IIIM. You have the floor.
Thank you. And I'm always very humbled to hear Fadwa and others who, through their courage and their honesty and their engagement, make us realize that we need to do our best and utmost to try and bring some justice, but some closure as well to their experience. And I'm very thankful for you to share your story today with us. Thank you. For those who don't know, the mechanism which I head was created in December 2016 as an accountability mechanism. We were created by a vote of the General Assembly with an open mandate to document the crimes committed in Syria from March 2011, regardless of group of perpetrators, and to document crimes such as genocide, crimes against humanity, and war crimes. Our task is to collect, consolidate, preserve, and analyze evidence of those crimes to criminal law standards and to support current, and as it was then, as it still is, future jurisdictions who would be investigating and prosecuting these crimes. As I said, we are an accountability mechanism using criminal law standards, and we've been referred to as a quasi-prosecutorial body. So maybe we could say even Syria's war crimes unit, and have been in existence for 8 years. Up until December 8th, our focus was twofold: to build cases for our own, directed by our own priorities, such as the use of chemical weapons against civilians, the detention system of the Assad regime, which coincidentally on the 6th of December, 2 days before, we for the first time published a report. We're not in the publishing report business, but for the first time we thought it was appropriate to publish a report on the Syrian detention system that mapped out over 300 different sites and the fate of over 30,000 detainees. So we were and have been building cases following our own priorities of investigation, but we've also been supporting jurisdictions. We have received over 450, I think, requests for assistance from 16 different jurisdictions who across the world were and have been and will continue to be investigating and prosecuting crimes committed in Syria. Of those 450 odd requests for assistance, I'm happy to say we were able to assist in over 225 of them, representing a total of about 300 separate investigations that have been and are ongoing across the world. We suspect, and actually we know, that the fall of the regime will continue to create more requests for assistance based on the fact that now suspects and evidence may also now be available because of the fall. And we have, as I said, building cases for a future accountability in Syria. And we are now, for the first time in 8 years, we have a distinct possibility of that. What that means will have to be decided by Syrians. What justice will mean for Syria have to be a decision that is reached by Syrians in the most inclusive manner, so that they can define a way forward. I've worked in different post-conflict jurisdictions across the world, in several of them. I've seen the importance, but also the limit of what the criminal justice process can do. It is an essential part. When you talk about transitional justice, it's not only about criminal trials. It is about a whole set of tools and decisions that have to be made about how to use these tools to achieve, as you said, the truth. The criminal justice process needs to be part of that. It needs to be part of that for those most responsible. And we've heard the caretaker authorities mention that they want to focus on serious criminals. And it has to be part of that transition because obviously it accounts for the worst of crimes. It accounts for those who were the architects of those crimes. And it as well produces the truth. That's what a criminal justice process does. It's the truth beyond a reasonable doubt. From that basis, you can then rebuild, everybody knowing what has happened and why. But it is much wider than this, and it can encompass different things, such as truth and reconciliation commissions, various committees, etc. In terms of the role the IIIM can play in this transitional justice process, Obviously, as I said, we have not only the evidence, but the expertise, not the resources, but we have some resources that we can and will bring to this process, again, as needed by Syrians. They will decide how we can best assist. We know how to build cases. We know how to put evidence together, arguments and the law, so that people are held accountable to the highest standards. That is something we can do. We know how to preserve evidence. Fadwa, you were mentioning those scenes about the papers getting thrown, and it's the truth that you're seeking. And as you said, we can understand why people went in. We can understand why they tried to get their own answers. But the fact is that some of those answers have now been lost, unfortunately. There are ways, though, and a government being a government, there's often double and triple and quadruple the same piece of paper everywhere. So hopefully we will be able to find the other piece of paper that will answer. But we must be able to do that. But preserving that evidence, consolidating it and preserving it for criminal processes, but also for truth-seeking processes, is something that the IIIM knows how to do and is willing to do. And as I mentioned, we can also help Syria in terms of viewing different types of accountability and different aspects of transitional justice. We are not a capacity building body. We're not an advisory body, but my colleagues and I have worked in about all the different iterations of accountability. We know the plus and minuses of each, and we would be happy to take part in this dialogue. We have been in touch with the government. I was in Damascus on the 21st of December, where I met the caretaker authorities. We asked at that time to be able to have permission to come to Syria to exercise our mandate. We need permission. Syria is a sovereign state. It's not a farm where you can just walk in. We need permission. So we've been in discussions with Syria since then, with the caretaker authorities. I've met Minister Shabani twice now, the day before yesterday, the most recent one. We've been in discussions. I am hopeful, I have to remain hopeful, that we will have permission to go to Syria and help in any way that we can, either in advising, in coordinating, in marshalling support from other jurisdictions, but also in helping build cases if the transition itself and the justice process is clarified. So it's something that, as I said, we've been doing. We have, I think, 293 up to now terabytes of data that we can exploit. It's apparently a lot. I don't know what it means, but it's apparently a lot. But what I do know is that we certainly have the expertise to do that. We have individuals we have investigators, analysts, legal support. We know how to do this, and we're just waiting to have the permission. I'm hopeful that it'll come in the next while, and that we can do our part to get you the truth that you need. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Without further ado, we move to Bushra from the Civil Peace Group. You have the floor.
We are a non-partisan and non-political group formed after the fall of al-Assad regime. Our goal is to achieve sustainable civil peace, relying on justice and equality as the foundation for genuine peace and transition from dictatorship to a civil democratic state. We believe that building bridges and fostering conversations between diverse communities is a key element to filling the gap that the old regime created and nourished for years. As the first of many to follow, we organized a community meeting in Homs City, gathering representatives from diverse local communities where stories, concerns, and aspirations were shared. And we were also planning projects and initiatives focusing on women, children, and youth to involve them in the civil work, as we believe that they are fundamental pillars of civil peace. We began as well documenting the violations that occurred the day after the regime fell. This includes incidents of theft, looting, insult, and kidnappings in Homs City, where we recorded in Homs City specifically 86 kidnappings, of which 23 victims were found killed, while 63 remain missing. And we think it is important to note that these are just the cases we were able to document, where many people refuse to share information or speak with us because they are afraid and believe that they might be harmed if they do. Over the past week, Syria's coastal regions have witnessed an alarming escalations in violence perpetrated by armed groups affiliated with the current authorities, resulting in the tragic deaths of hundreds of civilians, including women, children, and entire families, and what appears to be a wave of sectarian killings. This surge followed ambushes on government security forces by factions linked to the former regime, promoting the deployment of military reinforcement by Syrian authorities and informal calls for general mobilization by unauthorized factions. And these actions have led to involvement of militias from various provinces, including Hama, Aleppo, and Idlib. Stating the previous, we see clarity on the following matters. First, despite interim authorities' announcements regarding the dissolution of armed factions and their integration into the army, widespread weaponization persists. Local battalions continue to exert control over specific areas, frequently operating checkpoints that subject civilians to mistreatment, fostering constant fear, humiliation, and sectarian tension, reminiscent of abuse under the prior regime, al-Assad regime. In certain neighborhoods, disarmament has occurred, but adjacent areas where pre-existing tension remain armed, resulting in extrajudicial killings, theft, and the elimination of entire communities. Our question here: what measures will be implemented to rehabilitate and reintegrate security personnel into institutions to ensure their operations prioritize civilian protection? Furthermore, what is the timeline for achieving these objectives? Second, in the coastal regions, the relationship between local communities and governing authorities has been severely strained due to revenge killing perpetrated by militias within Syria's new army, resulting in over 1,000 deaths, including many civilians targeted for their ethnic identity. This violence has exacerbated humanitarian challenges, including the displacement of approximately 51,000 civilians, as reported by the United Nations Population Fund, and the disruption of humanitarian access to affected families. What steps can be taken to establish a comprehensive framework for building trust with local communities and ensuring their active participation and inclusion in efforts to foster stability? In post-dictatorship Syria, collaboration between civil society and the government. Sorry, this is a bit difficult to mention the coastal area and remembering all the images. Yes, so. In post-dictatorship Syria, collaboration between civil society and the government was not an option, and we think it is vital for fostering democratic change and improving citizens' life. That we important to collaborate. However, current restrictions undermine this cooperation. Civil society organizations face strict control, as every meeting or public event, even cultural activities, requires government approval, limiting independent initiatives. Additionally, organizations are prohibited from engaging with international bodies or embassies without ministry approval, hindering access to funding and partnerships. These restrictions suggest an intent to dominate rather than support civil society efforts. What is the purpose of these measures? This is the question. And how can civil society and the government work collaboratively to improve citizens' lives? What concrete assurance and strategies are in place to protect civil activists and foster an open and cooperative relationship between the government and civil society? Last but not least, enforced disappearance has been long a systematic and deeply troubling practices in Syria for decades under the Assad regime. It is crucial to determine the fate of all individuals who have been disappeared, including those who went missing following the fall of the regime. In this context, it is essential to emphasize that the active participation and consultation of victims' families must be recognized as the fundamental pillar in all initiatives and at every stage of the process, aimed at uncovering the truth and delivering justice. Their involvement is not only a moral obligation, but a critical step toward fostering accountability and rebuilding trust within affected communities. We firmly believe that the mentioned points are essential pillars for transitional justice as well. Without dedicated attention to addressing and achieving them, the broader objectives of justice, truth will remain unattainable. It is imperative that these issues are prioritized to ensure accountability, transparency, and meaningful progress in the pursuit of just and equitable future. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Bushra, and thank you for taking the time. We can only begin to understand the emotional toll of the recent events. So thank you so much for being here. I will give the floor to Carla, the head of the Independent Institution on Missing Persons in Syria. Thank you.
Shukran, thank you. Sabah al-khair. Buenas tardes, good afternoon. I would like to start by thanking Fadwa and Bushra for what they have shared with us, which is what Syrian families, thousands of Syrian families are enduring and have been enduring for decades now. So first of all, our thoughts, our work, our commitment to you from all of us, from my team and from all of us working here, from all the institutions that work for Syrians with Syrians. Thank you for that. For those who don't know who we are the Independent Institution on Missing Persons, IIMP. I'm not used to the acronyms yet. I'm new to the UN. But I think the most important thing to say about us is that we were created by families of the missing, and we were created by the work also of civil society, who lobbied for years for us to be here and to exist and look with them for the thousands of missing persons in Syria. So when Bushra was saying at the last part of her speech that it's imperative for for anything that we build in Syria to be with the families and with civil society, that's absolutely true, and it has to be in the center of everything, not only what we as the independent institution does, but everything that we as an international community does. We have to learn from past experiences all over the world. We have to work with the nationals. This process has to be locally owned and internationally supported. And that's what we are here for. Our mandate, it's huge. We have two specific mandates. One is to look for the whereabouts of all missing people in Syria. That's their first mandate. Our second mandate is to support the families of those missing. And we have the expertise, just as Robert was saying, we have the expertise. We have people from all over the world working in the institution. We have the mandate. We don't have that many resources as well. We share that also with Robert. But we have that commitment to work with everyone, to look for everyone. And that takes me to the next point I wanted to share with you. We look for everyone. And when we say everyone, it means everyone. Regardless of when they were missing, regardless of why they went missing, regardless of what is their nationality, regardless of their ethnicity, regardless if there are children, women, men, regardless if they were missing in a combat situation, regardless if they were missing while migrating, regardless if they are in the diaspora or not. So I think it's very important for everyone to understand that we have a humanitarian mandate to look for everyone. Then, when we say, I want to stop here just because when we were in Damascus 1.5 months ago, every person we talked to, and when I say everyone, like if we were, when we were in a taxi, when we were having lunch, the waiter came to us, the driver came to us, and everyone told us they knew someone, that they had someone missing. And as Bashar was saying, not everyone has actually come forward to say this. They are starting to talk. We went to Daraya and we talked to women in Daraya who had their husbands or their brothers missing, and they had never talked to any authority or to any international institution. So when we say there are tens of thousands of people missing, it's because we know we have that information because of civil society, but we really don't know for sure how many people are missing in Syria yet. And that's one of our big questions that we have to solve. When we talk about transitional justice, truth is in the center of when we talk about justice, right? Like if there is no truth, there can't be justice. So what we do at the independent institution of missing persons is help to advance and to get closer to the truth, al-Hakika. And with the truth at the as a first step will help us bring some justice, either if it's criminal justice, either it's transitional justice. We are part of this big process as, that we of this big transitional justice process. Memory is part of this process, and looking for the missing and finding the missing is in the center also of a sustainable peace. If we want to think of a free Syria, of a new Syria for all Syrians, we need truth and we need to know what happened to thousands of people that went missing. The task is huge. And we have, of course, many challenges ahead of us. We have the challenge of, as I said, knowing who's missing in the first place, of reaching everyone in Syria, not only go to Damascus, we have to go everywhere in Syria, talk to everyone. We have the big task, as Fadwa and Bushra were saying, about documentation, about protecting sites. We have the challenge to look for people alive and also dead. We have the big challenge of coordinating. It's easy, but everyone likes saying, like talking about coordination, right? It's so easy. You have to coordinate. I mean, we were created because, like, the international community said, you guys have to coordinate because there are so many institutions trying to help, but they don't coordinate, right? It's so obvious, but it is so difficult to do. There are many institutions that we all have the same will. We all want to help. There's the IIIM, there is the Commission of Inquiry, there is the Independent Institution of Missing Persons, it's ICRC, ICMP, local institutions, there's the government, there's the families, there are so many, there are families in the diaspora, there are families inside Syria. So we have to build this together, and we have to coordinate and make it happen. We all want it to happen, but we have to make more. We have to do better for this to happen. And we are here to help. Finally, we have been in touch with the government, as Robert said. We went to Syria, as I said, 1.5 months ago, and I met with Minister Chavani 2 days ago, while we were in Brussels, and we gave him our preliminary program for them to analyze as to how we can help this locally owned process and internationally supported. And when we say nationally owned or locally owned, we are talking about all Syrians, not only government, but families and NGOs. He was open, as Robert was saying, he listened, and we hope we're going to be there in some weeks to follow up into this. Finally, I just want to take my last words are to think of everyone who is missing in Syria. While we're talking here, there are thousands of families waiting for an answer, and it is for us to make this discussion happen. We like talking about transitional justice. We are talking about how international cooperation should coordinate. And we have to do this here, but we have to go there in Syria and start making this happen now. And as I say, not now, yesterday. Yeah. Thank you. Shukran.
Thank you so much. And yes, a discussion on Syria will need hours, but thank you for cutting short to respect the time. We have one final speaker with us today, Lynn from the Commission of Inquiry on Syria, who will be joining us online. Lynn, do you hear us?
Thank you. Sabah al-Khair. I can say that because I'm afraid I'm speaking to you from London. And because it's from London, it means it's just about still morning. Excellencies, colleagues, friends, very honored to be on this panel. Thank you for the invitation. My greetings are accompanied by those from Hani Magelli and Paolo Sergio Pinheiro, who are the other members of this commission, and I'm sure probably better known to many of you than am I. I'm going to speak very briefly about the Commission and our mandate. We were established in 2011, just a few months after the March events that were marked this year as the 14th anniversary of the start of the conflict. And our mandate is renewed, well, so far it has been, it's reviewed, and so far renewed annually since then, at the end of March, beginning of April, so it's coming up quite soon. The mandate is to investigate alleged violations of international human rights law and international humanitarian law by all duty bearers under international law from March 2011, and to present public reports and findings twice a year and an oral update in June. So the last annual report we presented to the Human Rights Council, or rather my colleagues did, because I can't travel at the moment. As I said, I'm stuck in London. And it was a very unusual occasion for us, because the first time we had a constructive engagement response to the report from the Syrian permanent representative. We have ourselves also, the Commission has sent 3 teams, one accompanying Hani Magelli to Damascus since December, one in December and January and February. And as I speak, the reason that neither Hani nor Paolo were able to join us today is because they are on their way and hoping for some significant discussions. The 2 things to note about our mandate, I think, the mandate is from the Human Rights Council. That's not one of the 2 things. The other thing is that It means that we monitor violations of those various bodies of law by all parties to the conflict and right across Syria. That's the central mandate, monitoring and investigation. It means we monitor, investigate reports of human rights violations by government authorities, by armed groups, by foreign armies. And from this, we have built up a huge public record of those public reports twice a year and an enormous database. I don't have the stats with me, but we have shared, depending on consent and in line with all proper procedures, information with the triple IIM, now headed by Robert over the years in regard to judicial proceedings and investigations. And we are also working out manners to share in the future. We also worked, this is before I came on board, but it was a lot of advocacy by the COI on with the and led by the families of the disappeared and the missing, that led up to the establishment by their efforts of the IIMP. So we have the public record, which is augmented by reports such as our recent housing, land and property, which I think is also it's called Pillage and Plunder, and it was posted in the January, and our longest detention report so far, called The Web of Agony. These, as part of the public record, I think are also very important for transitional processes. And all this was done with no access to Syria. Now that we have access, we're hoping also for a constructive engagement. It means that we will be able to verify. In fact, our team have already verified a number of our past findings in regard to detention sites, conditions of detention in on-site visits so far. The second, sorry.
Excuse me,
Yes.
I've been told that we need to wrap up because there is another meeting after us. So I will ask you just to conclude so we can finish off the event. I'm really sorry.
Right. Okay. Well, I'll try not to talk too quickly because that would be my chosen form of doing it. But we also do, our second point is that we do current and ongoing violations. So we have been investigating and taking testimonies and doing digital verification on what has happened in these dreadful events of the last few weeks, and also what happened in Homs and Hama. So we are also investigating that, as we have always done in our usual methodology, and we hope it will be possible to do it on the ground soon. We will be working as close as possible also to monitor legislation, including on freedom of association and the freedom for the civil space that Syrian organizations need so badly to set these processes up and make it possible to reach truth and justice in a free Syria. So that's what we will be doing. Sorry, I got.
Thank you. Thank you so much, Lynn, for respecting the time, and thank you all for being here today. I think we should, yeah.